Oh yeah, chapter 12. Petrushka entered the room with a rocking motion in a peculiarly offhand manner and with a look that combined servility and triumph. Evidently he had devised some plan, felt quite within his rights, and looked like a complete stranger, that is, like someone else's servant, only nothing like Mr. Golyakin's former servant. Well, you see, my dear man, our hero began breathlessly. What's the time? Without a word, Petrushka withdrew behind the partition and returned to announce in a rather independent tone that it would soon be 7:30. Good dear man, that's very good. So you see, old chap, let me tell you that everything appears to be over between us. Petrushka did not reply. Well, now that everything is over between us, you can tell me frankly as a friend where you've been, old chap. Where I've been to see good people, sir. I know, my friend, I know. I've always been satisfied with you, dear chap. I'll give you a good reference. Well, what were you doing there? Why, you know very well, sir, it's a fact that a good man won't teach you bad ways, sir. I know, my dear man, I know. Good people are rare nowadays, my friend. You must value them. Well, how are they? What do you mean, sir? You know how they are. Only I can't stay in service here anymore, sir. You know that for yourself. Yes, I do, dear man. I do. I know how zealous and diligent you are. I've seen all that. Taking note of it, my friend. I respect you. I respect a good and honest man, even if he's only a flunky. Why, of course, sir, the likes of me, sir, as you know very well, must go where there's best off. That's how it is. What's it to me? You know very well that it's impossible without a good man. All right, old chap, all right, I appreciate that. Well, here's your wages and your reference. Now let's kiss and let's say farewell, old chap. But there's one last service I ask of you, said Mr. Golyakin solemnly. You see, my dear chap, all sort of things can happen. Sorrow, my friend, lurks even in the gilded palaces, and you can't escape from it anywhere. I reckon, my good friend, I've always been good to you. You see, my dear chap, all sorts of things can happen. Sorrow, my friend, lurks even in gilded palaces, and you can't escape from it anywhere. I reckon, my friend, I've always been good to you. Petrushka said nothing. I think I've always been good to you, dear fellow. Well, how much linen do we have, dear chap? All present and correct, sir. Linen shirts, 6, sir. Socks, 3 pairs. Shirt fronts, 4, sir. 1 flannel vest and 2 sets of underwear. You know that's all, sir. I got nothing of yours, sir. I, sir, look after my master's possessions. You know that very well, sir. And as for me doing anything I shouldn't have, never, sir. I believe you, my friend. I believe you. That's not what I meant, my friend. Not that. You see, it's this, my friend. Of course, sir. We know that very well, sir. When I was still working for General Stolbiganakov, they let me go. They let me go as they were moving to Saratov. That's where the family estate was. No, my friend, it's not about that. It's nothing. Don't start thinking things, my friend. Of course, sir, you know it's easy to speak ill of the likes of us. You know that very well. But everywhere they've been satisfied with me. Ministers, generals, senators, counts, I worked for them all. Prince Vyshchakin, Colonel Pereborkin, General Nebodorov. He also went out to his family estate, so it's a fact. So yes, my friend, yes, that's very good. That's very good. And now I'm going away, my friend. We all have different paths to travel, my friend, and there's no telling what path you may finally tread. Well, my friend, put my things out so I can get dressed. Lay out my uniform jacket, too, and my other trousers, sheets, blankets, pillows. So they bundle them all up. Yes, my friend, please do bundle them up. Who knows what may happen to us. And now, dear friend, you can go and find a carriage. A carriage, sir. Yes, my friend, a carriage. A nice, spacious one for a fixed period. And don't start thinking things, my friend. Do you intend going far, sir? I don't know, my friend. That's something I don't know either. You better pack the feather bed, too. What do you think? I'm relying on you, my dear chap. But you don't want to go right away, do you, sir? Oh, yes, my friend, I do. A circumstance has arisen. That's how it is, dear chap. That's how it is. Of course, sir. It was the same with the lieutenant in my regiment, sir. Carried off a landowner's daughter, he did. Carried off? What do you mean, my dear chap? Yes, he carried her off and they got married on a different estate. It was all planned in advance. There was a hue and cry, but the late prince stuck up for them and it was all patched up in the end. How do you know about all this? Well, I just know. News travels fast, sir. We know everything, sir, of course. Who hasn't been guilty of sin? Only if I may be permitted to mention it now, sir. In plain servant's talk. If this is what it's come to, then I'll tell you, sir. You have an enemy. You have a rival, sir. A powerful rival, that's what, sir. I know, my friend, I know. You know it yourself, dear chap, so I'm relying on you. Well, how are you going to do it now, my friend? What do you advise me to do? Well, so if you're going in for that kind of thing, roughly speaking, well, you'll be needing to buy her sheets, pillows, another feather bed, a double, sir, and a good quilt from a neighbor and a tradeswoman who lives downstairs, sir, and she's got a very nice fox fur coat. You could go down there right away, sir, have a look and buy it. Just what you'll be needing now, sir. It's a fine coat, satin, lined with fox fur. Very good, my friend. That's good, I agree. I'm relying on you entirely, my friend, but we'll have to be quick. I'll go and buy that coat. Only for God's sake, please be quick. It will soon be 8. Be as quick as you can, my dear. For God's sake, hurry. Be quick, my friend. Petrushka abandoned the linen, pillows, blankets, and various odds and ends. He had not finished bundling up, and rushed headlong from the room. Meanwhile, Mr. Golyakin grabbed the letter again, but he could not read it. Clutching his wretched head in both hands, and hands, he leaned against the wall in amazement. He was unable to think about everything, nor could he do anything. He himself didn't even know what was happening to him. Finally, seeing that time was getting on and that neither Petrushka nor the coat had appeared, he decided to go himself. Opening the door in the hall, he heard voices arguing, altercations from down below. A few women neighbors were shouting, quarreling, passing judgment on something. Mr. Goliakin knew very well what about. He heard Petrushka's voice and then footsteps. Good God, they'll bring the whole world in here next, groaned Mr. Goliakin, wringing his hands in despair and rushing back to his room. Once there, he fell almost senseless onto the sofa, burying his face in the cushion. After lying there for about a minute, he leaped up and, without waiting for Petrushka, put on his galoshes, overcoat, and hat, seized his wallet, and charged headlong downstairs. I don't need anything, old chap. I don't need anything, dear chap. I'll see to everything myself. I don't need you for the moment, and perhaps the whole thing would even turn out for the best in the meantime, Mr. Goliakin muttered to Petrushka when he met him on the stairs. Then he ran into the courtyard and away from the house. His heart stopped beating. He still hadn't decided what he should do, what steps he should take at this present critical juncture. Yes, I mean, what should I do, for God's sake? Why on earth did all this have to happen? He finally cried out in despair as he trotted blindly, aimlessly along the street. Why did all this have to happen? If it hadn't been for this, precisely this, then everything would have been settled once and for all. At one stroke, at one clever, energetic, powerful stroke, everything would have been settled. I stake my finger that it would have been settled. I even know exactly how it would have been settled. It would be done like this. I'd simply say, it's like this, my dear sir, it's this and that, if you don't mind my saying. So it's neither one thing or the other, as far as I'm concerned. Things are done that way, so to speak. I have said, an imposture, my dear sir, will get you nowhere here. An impostor, my dear sir, is there someone who's worthless, no use to his native country. Do you understand that, sir? Do you understand that, my dear sir? That's how it would have been, you know, but no. Now, why am I talking all this nonsense, you other idiot? I'm a suicide, that's what. No, that's not it at all, you suicide. But this is how it's being done now, you old reprobate. Well, where shall I go now? What shall I do with myself, for example? Just tell me when I'm fit for now. Well, to give an example, poor old Goliakin, you unworthy fellow. Well, what now? I need to hire a carriage, so she says. I should go and get a carriage, or we'll get our feet wet, so to speak, if there isn't any carriage. And who would have thought it? Well done, my fine, well-behaved young lady, your much-praised young miss. You've really excelled yourself, young lady, no doubt about it. Really excelled yourself, and it all comes from an immoral upbringing. Now that I've looked into this and got to the bottom of it, I can see it all seems from nothing else but an immoral upbringing. Instead of giving her, so to speak, the occasional thrashing when she was a child, they stuffed her with all kinds of sweet meats and bonbons, and old man drools over her. The old man drools over her. You're my pretty darling, he says. You're my this and that, and we'll marry you off to account. And now she's turned out like this and shown her hand. That's what our game is, she says. Well, instead of keeping her at home, they sent her to boarding school, some French madame, some immigrant lady, some Madame Falbala or whatever, and she learns all sorts of good things at that immigrant Madame Falbala. So that's why it always turns out like this. Come and rejoice, she says. Be with the carriage under my window at such and such time and sing me a sentimental Spanish serenade. I'll be waiting for you, and I know you love me, and we'll run away together, and we'll live in a little hut. But in the end, it simply can't be done. If this is what it's come to, young lady, it can't be done, as it's against the law to carry off an honest and innocent girl from her parents' home without the parents' consent. And finally, what's the point? What's the need for it? If only she marries someone she ought to marry, the one preordained by fate, that would be the end of the matter. But I'm a working man. I could lose my job over this. I might end up in court, my dear young lady. That's how it is, if you didn't know. It's that German woman's work. It all comes from her, the witch. She's a spark that set the house on fire because a man's been slandered because they made up some old woman's gossip about him, some brazen cock and bull story on Andrei Filipovich's advice. That's where it all comes from. Otherwise, why on earth should Petrushka be mixed up in it? What's it to do with him? What need does that scoundrel have to get involved? No, young lady, I can't. I really can't, not for anything. On this occasion, you must excuse me. It all comes from you, young lady. It's not the German that everything comes from, not from the old witch at all, but purely from you, as a witch is actually a good woman, because a witch is not to blame for anything, but it's you, young lady. You are to blame. That's how it is. You, young lady, are leading me into making wrongful accusations. A man's disappearing here. A man's losing sight of himself, and he can't keep a grip on himself. So what kind of wedding can there be here? And how will it all end? How will it all be arranged? I'd give a great deal to find that out. So reason our hero, in his despair, suddenly recovering himself, he noticed that he was standing somewhere at Litania Street. The weather was awful. A thaw had set in, and it was snowing and raining, well, exactly as it had been on that never-to-be-forgotten night, at that dread midnight hour when all Mr. Goliakin's misfortunes began. What kind of journey can one make in this? Thought Mr. Goliakin. Look at the weather. Everything's dead around here. Good God. Where can I find a carriage, for example? Yes, I think I can See something black over there at the corner. Let's go and investigate. Oh Lord, continued our hero, directing his feeble and faltering steps towards what looked like a carriage. Now this is what I'll do. I'll go there. I'll go and fall at his feet if I can. I'll humbly implore him and say, it's like this and that. I put my fate in your hands into the hands of my superiors. I'll tell him, Your Excellency, protect and be benevolent to a man. The Excellency, protect and be benevolent to a man. It's like this and that and such and such. It's an awful act. Don't ruin me. I look upon you as a father. Don't desert me. Save my pride, honor, and my name. And save me from that scoundrel, that depraved man. He's a different person, Your Excellency, and I'm another too. He's someone apart, and I'm also someone in my own right. Really someone in my own right, Excellency. Really someone in my own right. That's how it is, I'll say. I can't be like him, I'll say. Please be kind. Please authorize the change and put an end to that godless, willful substitution so that I won't serve an example for others, Your Excellency. I look upon you as a father, of course, benevolent, and caring superiors must encourage such actions. There's even something chivalrous about it. I take you benevolent authorities as a father, and put my fate in your hands, and I shan't contradict you. I entrust myself to you, and I myself will stand aside from the whole business. That's how it is. So you're a cab driver, dear man. Yes, I need a carriage, old chap, for the whole evening. Will you be wanting to go far? Sir, I want it for the evening, to go wherever I need to, my dear man. You won't be going out of town, will you, sir? Perhaps, my friend, perhaps even out of town. I myself don't know for sure, and I can't tell you for sure, dear chap. The fact is, it all might turn out for the best. That's so, my friend. Well, of course it is. It's so, sir. God grant that happens for everyone. Yes, my friend, yes. Thank you, dear man. Well, how much will you charge, dear chap? Will you be wanting to go right away, sir? Yes, that is. No, you'll have to wait at a certain spot. Yes, you won't have to wait long, dear chap. Well, if you want to hire me for the whole evening, I couldn't possibly charge less than 6 silver rubles, not in this weather. All right, my friend, all right, and I'll show my gratitude, dear chap, so you can take me there right away, dear chap. Get in, sir. No, excuse me. I'll just tidy it up a bit inside first. Now, please get in, dear sir. Where to? To Izmailovsky Bridge, my friend. The driver clambered up onto the box and was about to get his pair of scrawny nags going, which he had difficulty in tearing away from their trough of hay, and drive to Izmailovsky Bridge. But suddenly Mr. Golyakin pulled the cord, stopped the carriage, and implored the driver to turn back and go to some other street, and not to Izmailovsky Bridge. The driver turned into another street, and within 10 minutes Mr. Golyakin's newly hired carriage drew up before the house where His Excellency lived. Golyakin alighted, entreated the driver to wait, dashed up to the first floor, and with a sinking feeling rang the bell. I think I have 20 pages. His Excellency at home, Mr. Golyakin asked, addressing the servant who opened the door to him. And what do you want, sir? Asked the footman, looking Mr. Golyakin up and down. I, my friend, I'm Golyakin's civil servant, titular counselor. Say it's like this, and I come to explain things. You have to wait. It's impossible. No, my dear friend, I can't wait. My business is important and brooks no delay. Who are you from? Have you brought some documents? No, I'm here on a private matter. Please announce me. Tell him this and that. Tell him I've come to explain. I'll show my gratitude, my friend. But I can't. Orders are to receive no one. He has visitors just now. Please come back in the morning at 10 o'clock. Now do go and announce me, dear fellow. I can't wait. It's impossible. You'll answer for this, my man. Go on and announce him. What's the matter? Saving on boot leather, eh? Said another footman who was lolling on chest and had not said a word until then. To hell with boot leather. Orders are not to receive anyone. That's what. Their turns in the mornings. Go on, announce him, frighten your tongue drop off. Go on, announce him, frighten your tongue will drop off or something. All right, I'll announce him, but my tongue won't drop off. I've orders not to. That's what he said. Now come through. Mr. Golyakin entered the first room. A clock stood on the table. He glanced at it. It was 8:30. His heart ached and he was about to turn back, but at that very moment, a lanky footman stationed at the threshold of the next room thunderously announced, Mr. Golyakin. What a foghorn, thought our hero in indescribable anguish. Now I should have said, it's like this, so to speak. I come most humbly and dutifully to explain. Please be good enough to receive me. My business is all ruined. My business has been blown away in the wind. Oh, well, never mind. But there was no point in reflecting, however. The footman returned and announced, this way, please, and led Mr. Golyakin into the study. The moment he entered, our hero felt as if he had suddenly gone blind, as if he could see absolutely nothing. However, he caught a glimpse of 2 or 3 figures, and the thought, yes, they must be visitors, flashed through Mr. Golyakin's mind. At length our hero could clearly distinguish a star on His Excellency's black frock coat, and then, taking a gradual approach, he progressed to the frock coat itself until finally he regained the faculty of full vision. Well, sir, asked a familiar voice above Mr. Golyakin's head. Titular Counselor Golyakin, Your Excellency. Well, I've come to explain myself. What's that? What did you say? Yes, it's like this, so to speak. I come to explain myself, Your Excellency. And who are you? Mr. Golyakin, Your Excellency, titular counselor. Or what do you want? It's like this, so to speak. I consider him my father. I myself am withdrawing from the whole affair. Protection from my enemies. That's what I want. What's that? It's well known. What's well known? Mr. Golyakin didn't reply. His chin started to twitch slightly. Well, I thought it's chivalrous, Your Excellency. There's a touch of chivalry about it. I thought I look upon my superior as a father, so to speak. That's it. So please protect me with tears in my eyes. I beseech you. Such action should be encouraged. His Excellency turned away. For several moments, our hero's eyes could distinguish nothing. He felt a tightness in his chest. He was short of breath. He had no idea where he was standing. He felt somehow ashamed and sad. God knows what happened after that. When he recovered, our hero saw that His Excellency was talking to his visitors, apparently engaged in a vigorous and sharp debate with them. Mr. Golyakin at once recognized one of the visitors. It was Andrei Filipovich, but the other he didn't recognize. However, his face was somehow familiar. It was a tall, thick-set, elderly figure endowed with very bushy eyebrows and whiskers and a keen, expressive look. Around this stranger's neck was a decoration, and in his mouth a cigar. The stranger was smoking, and without taking the cigar from his mouth, he nodded significantly as he glanced occasionally at Mr. Golyakin. Mr. Golyakin began to feel somewhat awkward. He averted his eyes and at once caught sight of yet another very strange visitor. In a doorway which until then our hero had taken for a mirror, as sometimes happened with him, he appeared. It's obvious who, Mr. Golyakin's very intimate friend and acquaintance. Until then, Mr. Golyakin Jr. had been in another little room writing something in a great hurry. Now he was apparently needed, and he appeared with papers under his arm, went up to His Excellency, and fully expecting everyone's exclusive attention, managed very cleverly to worm his way into the general discussion, stationing himself behind Andrei Filipovich's back and partly screening himself with the cigar-smoking stranger. Evidently, Mr. Golyakin Jr. was taking a great interest in the conversation on which he was now eavesdropping in the most dignified manner, shuffling his feet, smiling, and constantly glancing at His Excellency as if by his glance he was asking that he too might be allowed to get his word in. The scoundrel, thought Mr. Golyakin, and he involuntarily took a step forward. At that moment, His Excellency turned around and he himself approached Mr. Golyakin rather hesitantly. Well, all right, off with you now. I'll look into your case and I'll get someone to show you out. Here the general glanced at the stranger with the bushy side whiskers. The latter nodded in agreement. Mr. Golyakin felt and fully realized that he had been mistaken for someone else. Not at all as he should have been. One way or the other, he thought, I really must explain myself. It's like this, so to speak, Your Excellency. I'll say, just then in his bewilderment, he looked down at the floor and to his amazement saw a sizable white stain on His Excellency's shoes. Surely they can't have spilt, can they? He wondered. Soon Mr. Golyakin discovered that in fact they hadn't spilled at all, but were acting as powerful reflectors, a phenomenon fully explained by the fact that they were of extreme glossy patent leather. That's called a highlight, thought our hero. The term is used particularly in artist studios, but in other places these reflections are simply called flashes of light. Here, Mr. Golyakin looked up and saw that it was time to speak, since the whole business might easily take a turn for the worse. Our hero stepped forward. It's like this and that, so to speak, Your Excellency, he said. These days, impostures will get you nowhere. The general made no reply and gave a hard tug on the bell pull. Our hero took another step forward. Your Excellency, said our hero, beside himself, almost dying with fear, but nevertheless boldly and determinedly pointing at his unworthy twin, who at the moment was prancing about near His Excellency. He's a depraved and vile man. Say what you like, but I'm referring to a certain well-known person. Mr. Golyakin's words were followed by a general stir. Andrei Filipovich and the unfamiliar figure nodded. His Excellency impatiently tugged with all his might, and the bell pulled to summon the servants. Here Mr. Golyakin Jr. in turn stepped forward. Your Excellency, he said, I humbly beg permission to speak. In Mr. Golyakin Jr.'s voice there was an extremely determined note. Everything about him showed that he felt he was completely within his rights. Allow me to ask you, he began, again anticipating His Excellency's reply in his zeal, and this time addressing Golyakin. Allow me to ask, in whose presence are you explaining yourself? In whose presence are you standing? In whose study are you? Mr. Golyakin Sr. was in an unusually agitated state. His face was red and burning with indignation and anger. Tears even came to his eyes. The Basavyukovs, bellowed the footman who had appeared in the doorway at the top of his voice. A good aristocratic name of Ukrainian origin, thought Mr. Golyakin. Immediately someone laid a hand on his back in the friendliest fashion, and then another hand was laid on his back. Golyakin's vile twin bustled around in front, showing the way, and our hero could clearly see that he was being steered towards the large study doors. And then he found himself out in the entrance hall, just as at Osify Ivanovich's. Mr. Golyakin thought as he looked around, he saw beside him two of His Excellency's footmen and one twin. The overcoat, my friend's overcoat, my best friend's overcoat, twittered the depraved man, snatching the coat from one of the footmen and tossing it right onto Mr. Goliakin's head as a despicable and mean joke. As he struggled out from under his coat, Mr. Goliakin Sr. could clearly hear the two footmen laughing. However, listening to nothing and oblivious to all around, he left the hall and found himself on a brightly lit staircase. Mr. Goliakin Jr. was following him. "Goodbye, Your Excellency," he shouted in Goliakin Sr.'s wake. "Scoundrel," our hero muttered beside himself. "So I'm a scoundrel, depraved wretch. So I'm a depraved wretch," the worthy of Mr. Goliakin's unworthy foe replied, looking down at him without blinking, straight in the eye even from the top of the staircase, with his characteristic violence as if inviting him to continue. Our hero spat in indignation and ran out onto the front steps. He was so crushed that he had absolutely no recollection of who helped him into the carriage or how. When he recovered, he saw that he was being driven along the Fontanka. "So I must be going to Ismailovsky Bridge," thought Mr. Goliakin Sr. Now he wanted to think of something else, but he could not. It was all so horrible that it defied explanation. "Well, never mind," concluded our hero as he drove off to Ismailovsky Bridge. The end of chapter 12.